Alright, we're here to talk about Old. I'm going to give my non-spoilery, that's a weird word to say, my non-spoilery thoughts quickly first, and then most of this video is going to be spoilers. So, if you can enjoy the process of a mystery movie, of trying to figure out what's going on and pieces getting revealed, and the ending doesn't matter to you, then you'll probably enjoy this. That's not to say that there isn't an answer at the ending or that it's a bad answer at the ending. It's just different people have different reactions to how things are answered or how they are revealed. So if you are dependent on the ending, that might affect how you feel about the rest of the movie as a whole. But if you can enjoy the process, regardless of what happens at the end, it's certainly interesting. And I would say this movie is disturbing, is the word I would choose. It's not scary. I wouldn't say it's suspenseful. But there's a surgery scene, which is just disturbing to watch. And then there's some, how do I say this? If you've seen the trailer, you know that the premise of the movie is that these people are aging rapidly, and there are children who soon inhabit bodies, or not inhabit, it is their bodies, but they soon have the bodies and the mindsets of teenagers and young adults, and they're on a beach, and everyone's in bathing suits, and things happen. So the concept of that type of situation with characters who are essentially children, it's disturbing to think about. Thank you, dog, for making noise to break that tension. So, there's some weird things in this, so I would say it's disturbing. It's not scary. I wouldn't really say there's a twist. You know, everybody always wants to know what the M. Night Shyamalan twist is. I guess it depends on what you call a twist. I wouldn't say there's a twist. I would say there's a reveal. And then, I guess, another reveal later on. There's a series of reveals. One big reveal. So those are my non-spoilery thoughts. I thought it was fine. Literally while I was watching it. And I'm not good at this at all. I'm not good at figuring out how much movies cost. But as I'm watching it, almost the whole movie takes place in one location. It's not that many actors. None of them are anyone that I've seen before and anything, so I'm like, this had to have been a cheap movie. So I was trying to figure it out, which sounds like I was bored in the movie. I wasn't bored. I was just, my mindset was, I'm not going to try to figure this out because I'm probably going to be wrong, and I don't want to have one thought and then have the movie tell me something else, and then I'm mad because my thought was wrong. So I was just enjoying the ride. It's pretty slow. It's a slow-paced movie. But I was trying to figure out how much this movie cost. And like I said, I'm not good at this. This is not something that I do, but I was like, definitely less than $50 million. Like, there's no way this movie cost $50 million. And then I was like, probably even half of that. Like, not even 25. And then I had it in my head. I was like, I bet it's $20 million. I bet it's $20 million. And then, kind of as I was going through that process, there was one scene that I was like, okay, that might have cost some money, but it was also really dark, so maybe not. And then I also had the thought of, I've never seen any of these actors before, but I haven't seen everything, so maybe some of them are more famous than I thought. So I gave myself a little contingency. I pushed it up to $30 million. I was like, if this movie costs more than $30 million, like, that'll shock me. And then I looked it up after the movie was over. $18 million. So I was right on the money with $20 million. That was really exciting. So that means that this movie doesn't have to do that well, and it will be a success. So that wasn't really about the movie, but that's now the end of my non-spoilery talk. Everything else I'm going to say about this will be some form of spoilers. And honestly, it's a lot of nitpicking, and I didn't hate the movie. I thought it was fine. There's just, with a movie like this that takes itself very seriously, there's a lot of things to nitpick. So, this is your official spoiler warning. Spoilers from here on out. The rest of you can go away. So, the biggest issue I had with the movie is that it's very difficult to tell the passage of time, which is very important because that's the whole thing. And they say it in the trailer, like a half hour on the beach is like a year of your real life. The problem with trying to do that is that 3 of the characters are children, and children grow fast. But these children only have, I think 2 of the kids have 3 actors, and then one of them has a 4th. But it takes them from 6 years old to almost 60. You're gonna look more than 4 different ways. And once they get older, they do more stuff with makeup and maybe some CGI and stuff like that to add wrinkles and things like that. But with their kids, they jump from, I think, like 6 to 11 to adult. And then there's an older one that starts at 11, so she goes from 11 to like 16 or something, and then adult. So there's big chunks of time missing from the movie, because at one point, you know, they've been on the beach for maybe, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, and they say that they've been on there for 7 hours. So it's like, wow, they've been on there a long time. And then you'll see, you know, stuff on screen taking 10, 15, 20 minutes, and the kids still look the same. So it's like sometimes a half hour is 7 hours, and sometimes a half hour is half an hour. And I'm generalizing on the times, but it's very difficult to keep track of the passage of time because you've only got so many actors for the kids. So all the important things need to happen in the midst of their aging, but that's just, and maybe it's because I'm a teacher, but like kids grow. Kids grow fast. Kids grow quickly. So it was just really weird, and it was just like, if you're going to put everything in your movie behind this concept, you need to show that process more. And there's kind of a delayed effect with the adults. They don't notice that anything's happening to them for a while. They just notice that it's the kids, because adults, you know, we don't grow as much as kids, at least not as noticeably. But even the kids, I would say, after they've said this much time equals this much time, it's like, you know, the kid jumped from 6 to 11. And they try to, you know, they try to hide that by the kids being off for a while. At the beginning, the kids being off for a while, or they'll like have the camera on them, but like from behind, or like just showing like an arm or their back, so like you don't see their face. So it's implied that there's more changes in between, but when you go from a 6-year-old to an 11-year-old to a teenager to an adult, it's like there should be more in there. But that's hard to do in a live-action movie with a budget of $20 million. So I had a problem with it. Not everybody will. That was the biggest thing that I kept thinking. And then, oh my gosh, as I was driving home. So I watched this movie at a theater. When I go to theaters, I eat popcorn. What happens when you eat popcorn? It gets stuck in your teeth. So I'm driving home, and I've got popcorn stuck in my teeth, and I'm fishing my tongue around my mouth, trying to get the little skins out from under my teeth. And then I start thinking about teeth. And the movie explains, or the characters assume they explain what they think, is that the cells don't affect your fingernails or your hair, because those are dead cells, so they're not aging more rapidly. And that's why their hair doesn't grow and their fingernails don't grow. Now, I don't think that makes any sense, because even though those cells are dead, the cells that are still living inside would be going faster, so it should still put... Anyway, they at least address it, right? There's a point made to address it. But they never address the teeth. And the 2 youngest kids are both 6, and they both specify that they are 6. And so I was wondering, I was like, at what age have kids lost all of their baby teeth? And they have all their adult teeth. And I looked it up, and according to what I looked up, and this kind of surprised me, so I'm not 100% sure it's accurate, but according to what I looked up, between the ages of 6 and 7 is when kids kind of finish up that process. So you would think that there's going to be a couple teeth lost and grown in that day. And literally one kid says he's 6 1/4, and another character says that the other kid just turned 6 2 weeks ago. So they're both freshly 6, And there's no mention, no shots or anything of them losing teeth and growing new teeth. And maybe it's because that would have been disturbing because teeth freak people out. But I was just like, they addressed the hair and the nails, but not the teeth. And it's like, you could have just not said how old they were. Or you could have looked that up and then said they were 7 instead of 6. They don't need to be 6. They just are 6. So, again, that is such a nitpick. I know. And it's just one of those things that as you're thinking about the movie afterward, you're like, wait a minute. Their teeth really come out. What else was I going to say about this movie? There's a lot of... So you know how in some movies there will be text that pops up on screen describing what you need to know about a character, like they do this and they're good at this and they know how to do this and this is their weakness, blah 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 blah. So this movie wants you to know all that, but it doesn't want to put text on the screen. So it has the characters just say that about themselves, but that would be really awkward. So in order to get there, they have one of the children literally going around asking everybody he sees, what's your name and your occupation? This 6-year-old kid just runs around asking everybody, what's your name and occupation? So then we learn this guy's a doctor, this guy's a nurse, this person's a dancer, this person's a cop, blah, 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 blah. And it's clunky. They literally have a character whose job is to get us to know who all the characters are, because it's not clever enough to work that into a natural setting. So that was kind of weird. And like, you don't realize what it's for at first. You're like, why is this kid so weird? And then later on, you're like, they had to make the kid that weird so that we would know all this stuff going into it. Another nitpick I would say is that if I were talking spoilers, the whole thing is revealed that there's this weird section of the beach that because of magnets or something, people's cells age faster, and there's this pharmaceutical company that tracks down people with diseases. Then they'll like spike their drink or somehow get them to take a medicine that they're testing, and then they will take them to this secret beach that they can't escape from, and they observe them until they die. And the idea is, in this one, the big revelation is that there was a character that had epilepsy, and we see her have a seizure before she goes to the beach. And almost the whole time she's on the beach, she doesn't have a seizure. And then finally she has one and she dies. And it's revealed at the end of the movie that in real life time, she went 16 years without having a seizure. So it's like, we now know that this seizure medicine is worth pursuing further. Because, you know, so they have an accelerated human trials, except, you know, they're not volunteers. They're kidnapped and forced to be these human guinea pigs so that these people can see how these medicine affects them. So everybody has a different medical condition, and they're given something beforehand, and then these people just observe them. So I think that's a fine premise. It's really awkward because when the reveal happens, to us, the audience, we get one of those classic, everybody, you've been working so hard. As you know, we do blah, 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 blah. And he, like, tells all the characters things that they already know because he's actually telling us, the audience. It's you know, it's been done to death. The Mysterio scene in Spider-Man Far From Home is just like, and so he's like, you know, it's the classic as you know. Just saying things that the characters all already know just for the benefit of us, the audience. So again, it's very clunky. It's not natural. And there's just a lot of that in this movie. I feel like I had a point to make that I needed to explain that first before I got to. And now I've forgotten about the other point that I had to make. So that's fine. So one of the characters has some kind of mental illness, but also he's pretty clearly racist. And I don't want to, you know, say that the film was it's weird because it was directed by M. Night Shyamalan, who's a person of color. It was based on a book, though. Don't know who wrote the book, but the thought that kept going through my head is just, racism is not a mental disease. Right? There are mental diseases that are diseases that can be treated. Racism is different, and both of those things are in the same person, and they don't say that they're tied together. It's just weird that those are both the same person, because it kind of feels like it's hand-waving racism, which is kind of weird. Don't be racist, guys. Oh, boy. The only other thing, and this is now going to sound ironic, and I'm not saying this as a bad thing. I'm just saying, from my experience, there are multiple characters in this movie that either have a heavy accent, or one of the kids, he doesn't have a lisp. It's just, sometimes when kids talk, it's not quite fully developed. And I don't think any of that's a problem, and I'm not saying that people with accents can't be in movies, or people that don't speak perfectly can't be in movies. I certainly mumble and slur my words a lot when I talk. But the fact remains that when you're in a theater and there's other things going on and you can't, rewind, or you can't put subtitles on, or things like there were a lot of lines that I just could not tell what they were saying. And sometimes it wasn't necessarily the voice, it was if, the music was too loud or something else was going on. So it's something that I don't feel like I lost any of the plot from, so I don't think it's a problem. It's just something that I noticed that it's like, what? I don't know what he said. And then 5 minutes later, what did he say? I can't tell what he's saying. And, some of the names of characters are just not the type of names that I'm familiar with, so it was hard for me to remember their names. Again, that's not a problem. It would be better if I, knew more names from other cultures, but I just don't. And so when we're told a character's name, and then someone later is talking about that character, I'm just like, who are they talking about? Is this someone that I've seen before? So, not a problem with the movie, not a flaw, just something that affected my experience based on my life experience. But I don't hold that against the movie in any capacity. So, I think that's all of my thoughts on Old. I wasn't, when we got to the ending, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, no way. Again, it's not really a twist, it's just a reveal. I knew we would get a reveal, or at least I hoped we would get a reveal. I was like, if they go through this whole movie and they don't explain anything, that's going to be odd. But then we get the reveal, and I'm like, yeah, okay. It seems like a thing that would be in a movie. So I thought it was fine. I am not interested in seeing it again. I'm not going to go out and tell people, oh my gosh, you have to see this movie. But if they're like, is it good? I'll be like, yeah, if you like a mystery. And again, if it doesn't matter what happens at the end, not because I think the end is bad, just because different people react to endings differently. So if you're dependent on the end, maybe go in with caution. If the ending doesn't matter and you just enjoy the journey, it's certainly an interesting journey. There's a scene where at a certain point, some characters, they kind of give up trying to escape as they're getting, very, very old. And they're just kind of sitting and enjoying it. And they're like, why do we try to escape this? It's beautiful, well, let's just be together with our family. And it's like, the adults at that point are, I don't know, probably 80. I guess not quite that old. Again, it's hard to tell how time works. But the adults are getting very, very, very elderly. But, their kids at that point are still middle-aged. And it's like, you still don't want your kids to get a chance to escape and live their lives. You're just like, oh, no, let's just all sit around by the fire and enjoy the beach. So there's some, questions there about if you're in a supposedly doomed scenario, do you keep fighting till the end? Do you just accept it and live in the moment with the people that you love? I don't think there's a right answer there. It's just one of those things that, makes you think, makes you wonder what you would do in that situation. So, those are my thoughts on Old. Feel free to tell me your thoughts. Feel free to tell me what a horrible person I am, because accents are difficult for me to hear sometimes. But that's all I've got. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.